Hello, Isaac in Austria, and welcome to the EB Academy session for our brand. Yes, so today's session is going to cover the topic of brand. And just so you know already, I am using a session which comes out of TTM, or Train the Marketers, which was a whole online and physical curriculum developed by AI a few years ago. And yeah, this was one of the online sessions, and I think it fits so perfectly to the subject. So I'm borrowing it and added a few things to it as well. So in general, by the end of the session, you should understand what a brand is all about. You should understand what are the key factors in running a successful brand. And maybe as a third informal objective, you should know what is the Blue Book and how to use it. So in general, understanding a brand. The first thing we need to do here is we need to get rid of the confusion between logo, identity, and brand, because sometimes people hear brand and they think of something else. This is the logo of Isaac, right? This is the symbol of the entire identity and brand, right? It goes in one image and it symbolizes everything that we stand for and our entire organization. But this is not the brand, this is the logo. This is the logo plus an icon plus this Isaac human. The shapes there are a little bit outdated already, but are also still here, and then colors and fonts. These are the visual aspects that make part of the overall brand, and you could say it's our visual identity, but still all of these things together are not the brand itself. Brand is maybe easiest to explain using an example. The example here is Isaac is saying to someone, hey, I'm Isaac, I'm developing leadership. And we can call this marketing. And it can be also over the phone, in which case we could call it telemarketing. It could be someone else talking to somebody else saying, trust me, they develop leadership, which would be great PR. It can be us telling someone, I develop leadership over and over again in the form of advertising. But only when the person says, I understand you develop leadership, Isaac, can we say that it's branding. Branding is key to understand that it's not what you say it is. It's not all the activities that you're doing that measure whether your brand is successful, but the perception of the customer. By definition, a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or company. And it's something you can't necessarily control, right? Because it happens inside of the heads of your customers, but you can influence it. And this is our role. We need to influence and make sure that people are thinking the right things when they hear our name. And in general, that they're thinking something when they hear our name, first of all. So to erase the misconceptions, a brand is not a logo, a brand is not an identity, it's not a product, it's not a slogan, it's not our advertising activities, it's not our marketing activities. It's all of the things combined in the form of what people think of when they hear of us. Let's take a look at the power of a brand. The power of, for example, this brand is that when you see their logo, you can think of breakfast, for instance, or when you see this shape and all the other brand elements associated with it, you can become thirsty. When you see this friendly-looking panda bear, it might trigger you to take action based on what you know about the brand behind it. And when you see a shape like this, you can imagine being taken to a different world, either virtually or even physically. And what we want to make happen is that when people see that shape, it inspires them to become a better self, right? This is the message behind our brand, and what we want to use all of our visual elements and identity and logos and everything to make happen is to contribute towards people connecting these two things and therefore eventually engaging with us in different ways. So yeah, branding is so much more than just using the Blue Book. However, you should refer to the Blue Book to learn more about how we communicate and what are the brand attributes and brand voice that we use. And in case you don't know what the Blue Book is, the Blue Book is a document developed by Isaac International, which defines exactly our brand globally as Isaac. Why globally? I can cover that a little bit later, but essentially, the Blue Book, which you can find under bit.ly/bluebookresources2018, has all of the right ways to use our logos, which fonts we should use, which colors we should use, and how to combine them to make gradients, everything. But beyond this, it also has what are our brand attributes, what is the tone of voice in which we speak to people, in which we write Are we conversational? Are we more formal? These kinds of things are covered in the Blue Book as well. And essentially, one of the main purposes of it, besides simply educating us, is that it's really important that we are consistent in all of our branding. And so when you take a post, for instance, something like this, you could then say, okay, check, the logo is as per written in the Blue Book, the font is according to the rules in the Blue Book, the watermark is placed in the same way that it should be as by the Blue Book. We're in the same kind of tone of voice as the Blue Book recommends, or not recommends, but prescribes. The colors are the right ones. The design style overall looks right, as the Blue Book says, and therefore this design can be said to be Blue Book aligned, right? Cool. Before I move into the next part of the session, I then wanted to just quickly pull up the Blue Book. I'll put it right here on the screen. So it has a lot of content, and I just wanted you guys to be familiar with what's inside, because I would want you guys, when you're creating designs for anything, to always base it on what you see in here. So the content side, the content page, sorry, has the brand of ISIC with the logo, the colors, the typography. Then it goes into individual detail about the products. So starting with the ISIC experience in general, and then global volunteer, global talent, global entrepreneur, each get a page. And these pages, by the way, also describe the product's value proposition. So what are the kinds of words and sentences you're supposed to use to define exactly what's the value that the product provides. And this can be used not just in marketing, but in sales, in product management, all around. We talk about brand architecture, about EWA. There's a short part about how to translate the product's marketing materials. And then there's a really big section on content creation. So this part is purely educational, and it shows you how we can try to align our visual styles in all of these types of content. So how can we make visual content, step-by-step, do's and don'ts, that looks like ISIC's visual content should, or videos which look like the rest of the videos that ISIC is creating. So in this way, we can make sure that we all have the same kind of style in creating content. Cool, then diving in. It starts off with our why. Why? Because our identity should be super clear before we move into creating any kind of fancy visuals. Our how, our what. I won't spend too much time on these pages, but all of this information is in here for everyone to see. Our personality is here. So our personality, if you imagine a brand as being a personification of an organization, in the sense of like, if ISIC were a human being, if it were a person, what kind of person would it be? Then these are the elements of our personality. So inclusive, energetic, engaged, genuine, simple. And there's a whole bunch of explanation about what each of these things mean and how we live this personality in the brand. Then the brand tone. So then it's no longer so much about our personality, but how we express that. So in general, our tone of voice is conversational and friendly, with attributes like being inclusive in our communication, being activational, daring, conversational, relevant, and relatable. We also talk about who is our audience, what kind of behaviors do we engage in as a brand. And then we're already going into the logo. So it shows you how, like which logo to use, of course, but also how to size it, how to space it, what you shouldn't do to the logo, for instance, resize it out of proportion or change the color. We also have a section on the ISIC human, also how to use that as a watermark or otherwise. The colors that we have officially as a brand, how to combine those colors into gradients. Fonts that you can use. So in general, Lato is our brand font, and we use it often in combination with other fonts. Generally not similar fonts though. So we have Lato as a main legible body font, and then there's a bunch of other fonts that we can use to accentuate certain parts of the text. And then we already start with the section on the products. So we look into the brand of each of the products. What are their value propositions? Also working with the brand of the SDGs, etc. So I just wanted to give you a really quick sneak peek here because there's a lot of information, and I think every single VP in ISIC in Austria should be pretty familiar with everything that's inside of here, no matter which function you're in. Cool. Returning then to here, I've already dropped hints on a couple of these things, but there's the 3 C's of a brand. And if you remember, if you were at Alps, you might have heard this session as well. The 3 C's of a brand are clarity, consistency, and constancy. So when we talk about clarity, it's about us being really clear on who we are as a brand and also making it clear for our customer. For this, we have, for example, the tagline, AIESEC is a global youth-led organization striving to achieve peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential by activating leadership qualities in youth through learning from practical experiences in challenging environments. It's a mouthful, but this one sentence defines already who we are, why we do, what we do, how we do it, all of these things. And all of these things are also in the Blue Book, as I said. In general, this is the AIESEC way for us. It's the way that we define what we stand for and what the brand is all about and why it exists, right? The next most important thing is consistency. So this is about us us actually being who we say that we are. So when we look at all of the phases of our customer flow, for example, attraction, consideration, in this PPT, it's still value delivery and brand advocacy, but as you know, it's preparation, experience, and post-experience now. But the question here is, does our customer flow actually bring to life this definition of AIESEC? Like, are we doing the things in our marketing activities and everywhere else that actually make us be a global youth-led organization that activates youth leadership? Another way to think about consistency is, are we using consistently the right language, the right tone of voice? Are we one AIESEC every time we communicate and every time we expose ourselves in different ways? So that's that. And then there's constancy. And for constancy, it's about putting ourselves out there and doing so on a constant level. So how often do we expose ourselves to our market? How often are the touch points that we have? And do people then start to see us more often and start to remember us? And this is really important because there's many different touch points you can have, but if you don't have constancy, if you're not constantly present, people will not bond connections with you in their heads. And it'll be really hard to get people to develop a sense of brand about AIESEC. Yes, so the 3 C's of brand: clarity, consistency, and constancy. Super important that you pay attention to all of these. My final note here would be that in terms of consistency, I really would like to point out that it's super important when you make designs that you first check before you print anything or publish anything online. Just really quickly with me, you can send me your design on Slack, just so I can have a look and make sure that it's aligned to the Blue Book. So this is part of our role as MC in joining the global level and the local levels together, is making sure that the global brand that we have as AIESEC globally is not damaged, or even not damaged, but is not blurred anywhere around the world. So it's super important before you create anything and print it and invest into it, make sure with me that it's good to go. Yes, so that was already it. As usual, we have a quiz question, and this time it's, why is constancy important? So go to bit.ly/VP Academy and quickly answer what you took out of this webinar. And besides that, thank you so much for joining, and see you soon.